Visible. My lessons today, the title is Opening to a Greater Truth Beyond the Visible. And as I said yesterday in my email to members and those that are a part of our e-blast, and again, invite you, if you're online and not a part of those emails, we invite you to call in so we can get you on that list so that we can continue to communicate. But I said, there can be no doubt that we are one as we watch this virus race around the world, right? What started in China quickly made its way through the world. Yes, in the form of illness, but that's not the only thing that races around the world in an invisible form. Using that same invisible power, we can spread even faster love, calm, centeredness, wholeness, compassion. And I'm going to ask those of you on the live stream, what else can we spread around the world? And for those of you in the room, what else can we spread around the world? Love, peace, harmony, healing, abundance, kindness, support. Any others there on live streaming? We essentially have the power, and it is the invisible power, to move people's consciousness into that greater truth, whatever those characteristics that we mentioned, whatever those truths are. And I just have to, it's worth repeating. It just touched me when I heard that the Italians were using the invisible power of voice, song, and music to sing together while they're quarantined from their balconies to show unity. Wow, what a beautiful, yes. What a beautiful expression. Yes, the invisible is where our power actually lies. Gratitude. Beautiful. And I'll be speaking a prayer that has a little of that, as well as a spiritual practice, encourage all of us to practice gratitude. For this center, the fact that we've been live streaming for a while, there were a lot of centers struggling to try to figure out how to deliver their services. So gratitude to all of you for supporting all of that. And we have some more options I'll talk about later. But the important point for us is that we must choose to focus and speak to one another about those truths in order for them to spread. Using our own conscious mind, which is connected in the invisible. So, yes, I want to spread it. How do I do it? It's in our heart and mind in which we're interconnected, like a net of light. We are connected to one another on this planet. And as we continue to love Mother Earth and to become more aware of the things we need to do to love each other, to love one another, not to necessarily hoard and live in fear, but to know that there is enough in each moment. The coronavirus is indeed showing us how interconnected we are. There's so much to learn from this current point in time if you're not living in fear. It's important to be informed, but it's also important to choose how you want to spend your time. And you may be spending your time a little differently than usual, which is asking you to use another invisible power, your creativity. What it is that you're going to think about, talk about, pray about, contemplate on. Are you choosing for this mindfulness moment opportunity to deepen your spiritual connection? to reflect on the truths, to connect with one another in different ways than before? Or are you letting the news manage your mind? As the saying goes, there is an opportunity in every crisis, and the deeper the crisis, the better the opportunity. I just have to share this because I am just in such a giggle mode from the essence of, I used to work for the CSU Chancellor's office, but they didn't have a telecommuting policy, so they let 15 of us go. They're now building a temporary telecommuting policy. And I just laugh at the universe and how things from consciousness come back around. And that the truth will always prevail. The truth of our wholeness and our perfection will always prevail. But it's difficult if you are not centered in truth to see beyond the fear or the crisis that you may see. We have to remain open, and fear tends to shut us down. And it literally shuts down the frontal cortex of our brain, right, Johnny? We need to be able to move ourselves into the space of being centered and comforted and calm in order to allow for our thinking to become more creative. What will you do with these different patterns that you now get to develop just based on how, as a society, we're going to be living together? What else can we learn from the virus? The virus made us aware of the invisible becoming visible. The virus spreads before it's even demonstrable. And in some ways, it's the same thing when you do prayer or treatment. Because prayer, in our form of prayer, affirmative prayer is called treatment, we know there is no spot where God is not. Hence, as we think, we know that it is already known in consciousness, which connects us all. You know, the fish would see it as while they're in the ocean, they know nothing other than the water that connects them all. Our consciousness connects us all, and as we know the truth in one place, it is known everywhere, as long as we are receptive to that truth. So you have the power to use your invisible power to change consciousness, and then it will be demonstrated visibly in the world. So, yes, we may be distanced. We may use our mind to become mindful together today, to become a cluster. So I'm sure many of you have seen the virus map. Well, this center right now becomes a bubble of consciousness and knowing our truth and wellness. And we know that for every center for spiritual living, and frankly, for every place where people are coming together today to know their greater truth, we are becoming that spot where that truth spreads. You know, you actually see the spots get bigger and the connections happen. That works in the positive. So these times provide tremendous opportunities to practice science of mind, spiritual tools, relying on gratitude for what we do have, to rely on the invisible principles we live by, the affirmations that affirm our truths, to be in affirmative prayer together, to make this all visible in our lives. So last book's month on our bookmark was Mind to Matter by Dawson Church. And we learned that what you think in your mind is becoming the cells of the matter in your brain. Science is making that connection. And our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, would be dancing with joy as he had spoken about religion, spirituality, and science would come together. And, science will eventually discover love, but they'll call it something else. And love is the true essence of who we are. And so, as you think in your mind, so you become. So think love and wholeness and health, and let that race around in your mind and in the world. So I'm going to recite a prayer. Yesterday, the Centers for Spiritual Living all got on this software. In case you haven't heard it, I'm sure you're hearing it now, called Zoom. It is a video conferencing, web conferencing piece of software. And the Centers for Spiritual Living, people were invited to come together, and this prayer was spoken. May we who are merely inconvenienced remember those whose lives are at stake. May we who have no risk factors remember those most vulnerable. May we who have the luxury of working from home remember those who must choose between preserving their health and making their rent or mortgage. May we who have the flexibility to care for our children when their schools close remember those who have no options. May we who have to cancel our trips remember those that have no safe place to go. May we who are losing our margin money in the tumult of the economic market remember those who have no margin at all. May we who settle in for a quarantine at home remember those who have no home. As fear grips our community, let us choose love. During this time when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other, let us yet find ways to be the loving embrace of God to our neighbors and all in our community. Amen. So, our book of the month for this month is called A Call to Power, The Grandmothers Speak. And for those of you that like to read the books that are a little less sciencey, as in last month, and a little more story, this is a book that's more like a story. And I'm going to set it up a little bit in that in order to deepen our spiritual connection, we must become more attuned and aware to what's beyond the visible. What's happening in our heart, what's happening in our mind, choosing our intentions. And it may be difficult to think about, how do I explore the invisible? Again, we must open and know that there are more dimensions in the invisible than the visible. There are more dimensions in the invisible than the visible. So this book may stretch some a little bit as the woman discusses her connection with the grandmothers who are on the other side and shares her experience. And I know for some that may be challenging to understand. But whether we're talking about Jesus or this expression of the grandmothers, the point is about the story. The point is that there is wisdom in the invisible dimension, and you can tune into it. It means you must take the time and have the intention to connect on that level. As you know, our dreams at night are beyond the visible. It may be visible to us, but not to others. Our intelligence is beyond the invisible. Our imagination is beyond the invisible. Each dimension can provide us with new possibilities, new openings, and new understandings about the invisible internal world which we actually live. Yes, we are living in the physical world, but we are also living in our own internal world. And of course, those are connected. And we get our internal world in order, then our external world follows suit. And that's the science of mind. But we tend to be distracted. And yet we depend every day on the invisible. So, again, for those of you that are in the chat room, I invite you to answer this question while I ask the question to the room. What do we depend on each day that's invisible? Air, electricity, technology, water. That's a little more visible. How about gravity? Like when you get up in the morning and you walk around? What else? Love. And we know that is powerful. And you can't really see love, but you see the demonstrations of love. Motivation. Healing. Yes, this intelligence that lives so deeply in us. And as our body flushes, which it needs to do sometimes, those things that we need to release, healing is revealed. Your heart beats. Do you control that? What is that invisible force that keeps that going? Prayer, thought, imagination, creativity, yes, all of that invisible. So, taken from early in this book, do not waste time looking outside yourselves for what you think you need. Turn your awareness instead towards the source of power that lies within you. When you have the correct relationship, and we would use aligned, with yourself, the higher self, you will find your power and your beauty. And living in your power in the correct way is not to dominate others, but to allow you to be more effective in the world and more compassionate with one another. So some other answers through the chat of what else is invisible that we depend on every day: energy, wind, faith, brain activity happening. Yep, beautiful. So power is in the invisible, but it is also, like love, demonstrable. We just look at the universe as the winds change today, as the seasons change, as the sun moves and the universe holds the earth in its gravitational force. It's all divine order. And you could look at the appearance of things and say, are things in order? Again, go within. In the grand scheme, it is all in divine order. Now, fear is faith also in the invisible, right? And love is the opposite of fear. When we're in fear, if we can switch to love, fear will dissolve. Now, I know sometimes that's a lot easier said than done. Again, it takes focus and sustained focus. It takes intention and keeping with that intention. So I'm teaching the practitioner class every Thursday night, and in the last lesson we had, denying love is our only problem, and embracing love is the only answer. If I can try to create a mental visual for you, it's, as we know because of the science of today, I may look like there's matter, but what do we know about matter? It's all mostly space. And as we are seeing with the virus, as I breathe, we are breathing the same air. We are moving that which is visible. And so when we move back into and are able to center into love, fear dissolves. Because love is all that we are. Love is that space, that energy. Love is what we are, except that we, in our thinking or in our beliefs or in our heart, block that love. Love is really all there is. But whether you're looking at politics or whether you're looking at disagreements in relationship or whatever you're looking at, that is the mental stuff getting in the way of pure love. Love heals, love forgives, love makes whole. And at the base of our being, love is what we are. Love cannot be destroyed and it cannot be ignored. So the call to deepen your connection is to let love flow. The ultimate invisible is God, universal source, beloved, Allah, Jehovah, whatever you call it. Marianne Williamson in Return to Love says, God, as love, is constantly expanding, flourishing, and creating new patterns for the expression and attainment of joy. When our minds and hearts, through our focus on love, are allowed to be open vessels through which God expresses, our lives become the canvases for the expression of that joy. That's the meaning of our lives. We're on earth to love. And of course, with our bookmark, our monthly theme is getting our nothingness out of the way. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, in Sermon by the Sea, says, find me one person who can get his own little nothingness out of the way, and he shall reveal to me the immeasurable magnitude of the universe in which I live. As I've said before, what if we just constantly invoked love in our thinking through everything we think throughout the day, every hour? What if during every conversation we remembered that our intention first is to love? So I've been practicing mindfulness, and at the university, my meetings, either one-on-one or with a group, is first we've come here to breathe. Because, there's a lot going on at the university right now. And there's a lot of change being asked of folks. And immediately that change can cause deep breath. And so, what's the word when you don't, my secular way of bringing the presence is to walk into the room and say, let's breathe. Because, if we're doing the, whether I'm faculty or staff, we are squeezing down versus opening up. And when we remember to breathe, we can only be in the present. If we focus on our breathing, we can only be in the present. The last of the Sermon by the Sea says, we are coming into divine consciousness, the awareness of the consciousness that is divine. Community is where individuals commune into unity, and where unity touches individuality, and individuality touches unity. Full circle. So I am going to end today knowing that we would have a little more time with not having music, and knowing that we can all do spiritual practice together. This is the time. I'm going to lead a meditation loosely outlined in the book, The Grandmother's A Call to Power. So if you'll get comfortable again, and Macy, I'll ask you to play that music again in the background. And this is a meditation on the net of light. As you get comfortable in your chair and you begin to focus within, I want you to think of or imagine a sense of a sparkling net of light, like a fishing net that covers the entire world. And as you think of this light, this net of light, notice that you are attached to it. You are a point of light on the net. Feel that connection. Sense, see, and imagine your connection through a net of light to all those around the world. As you make your connection to that net of light, you might become aware of strands of light moving from person to person all over the earth. It is this connection that creates the net. Hold this thought. Observe your response. Just observe. Notice how you are experiencing this net of light. You may be seeing it or maybe feeling it, one more than the other. Just continue staying connected, however that is for you. Inhale this light with a capital L. As you become more conscious of your place in the net, awaken to your invisible power. The love that you are, the wholeness that you are, the power that you are, the essence of peace that you are, the calm, the knowing, the expressing of the unique God in you. You are a part of this net. You are the power at one point that moves throughout the net. Feel the sense of connection, staying centered in your wholeness, in the truths that we have talked about today. The light is illuminating the net that originates in the heart of each person. The net is lit by the jewel of each one. All of those participating in this meditation are love, light, connected as a net, becoming of the ongoing flow of the giving and receiving of light. Light quickly returns to the center, through the sender, and through the center. Your minds and hearts make the decision to generate the light. This then is pumped into the net, into the world, into the strands. It returns to you in your eyes, your ears, your breath, your beingness. You bring the gift of returning the light. Sending light through the network takes place effortlessly. No sooner do you think of it than the light moves forth. Experience the transmission of light along the increasingly lighted network that you are awakening, supporting, and which is returning back to you. You are a part of the net of light, a living system that supports the earth. It is your own heart that generates the light of this net, and your heart, pumping light with each beat, sends it forth immediately. If you choose to give through your hearts, you will receive through your senses, and by this meditation on the net of light, goodness of every kind will be multiplied throughout the world. Light returns through your senses because this is how humans receive. This is how you know something is real. When something comes through your senses, you record it physically, emotionally, and mentally. So cast your light. Cast your light onto the net. Imagine yourself as a part of it. Take a moment to experience the strength of this net. Cast the light to those who need it most. And by knowing that as we've come together in this experience and expression of the love that we are and the light that we are, we know we are allowing for the wholeness and the healing to be revealed. We continue to move that energy by our focus and our intention, keeping our hearts and minds open for the creativity to show one another. How to live in our truth, how to know our truth, how to experience our truth, and to be this truth. I'm knowing this is good. I'm knowing that we are all blessed by allowing this to be so. And we say together, and so it is. I just want to say to you all, while we don't know how long the protocols for remaining at a distance may be, we all have many ways that we connect with each other now. Old-fashioned phone, old-fashioned email, texting. I just invite you, particularly as we were not all able to come together here today, because I know that when we come together, a part of it is the socializing and sharing the love that we have for one another. I want to ask you, if you have a center directory, to make some time and to at least make one call to somebody and just let them know they're loved. And remember our intentions and share that so that we can broadcast our own truths with each other, reminding each other of the divinity that we are. Namaste.